Okay, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I wanted to thank you, Lori, again and again for taping the meetings and having my son post them. Um, it's interesting how I get responses from people that I haven't been in contact with 20 years, and they're watching the YouTube. So it makes me very happy, and some new people also. And I wanted to welcome Janice Sturkey, who is my Thursday hostess. And the next this Thursday, next Thursday, we're off, but the 5th of December we'll be doing the Zoom with Janice's group in Hempstead, Texas. I know Hempstead, Texas is another world, and Lori and the Dallas Fort Worth people is another world. Texas is such a small state, bigger than Israel like 100 times. But anyway, so we welcome Janice and of course Pastor Glenn and all the other dear friends who are in attendance. Okay, so now we're going to talk today primarily about the ceasefire. President Biden is pressuring Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire. There's a whole hullabaloo going on here in Israel. After all that we sacrificed to defeat Hezbollah, to just pull back. I mean, we wouldn't pull back for 60 days, but the idea is the war is over, supposedly, in Lebanon. Though the missiles are flying, and the Israeli Air Force is bombing the Hezbollah area of Beirut. My wife says she doesn't think there'll be any kind of an agreement at this stage. Channel 14 on the Israeli TV says there'll be a ceasefire when we've defeated Hezbollah completely. So we're waiting to see what happens. I was very pleased, though, watching the TV. They showed the Litani River, and our troops were going across the bridge, the footbridge, north of the Litani River. I think that the Israeli military will continue moving northwards, and that we're going to cut off Tyre. Tyre is in Hebrew Tzor, which means a rock. Tzor is a very important word in Hebrew. It means flint or rock, and we've been bombing intensively. And so my hope is that both the Sunnis and the Shiites in terrorists in Tyre are being degraded, and that the Israeli army can more easily build itself up south of the Litani and in certain critical positions north of the Litani. And what I don't understand, and what none of us understand here in Israel, is that Israel is being forced to allow all of these terrorists north of the border of Israel to return to South Lebanon, which means that terrorism comes back. And so there's, like I said, all hullabaloo going on here as to whether or not this is a viable agreement. The problem is we have an American lame duck president who is not supplying things that have been promised to us. There are these military D9 tractors, which Israel paid for, and they're not being delivered. So if these D9 tractors are not being delivered, what it means is that our soldiers are getting killed because D9s obliterate buildings in which the terrorists are hiding without getting our troops endangered. So we're not very happy about that. We're not happy about the weapons, the armaments that we've been promised by the U.S. government. There's an embargo against Israel. One of our problems is, the American aircraft that we purchased and are using with great success have a very, very essential piece inside of the computer in the plane or the motor. I don't know. Is a very important piece of the smart weapon, which is the F-35 and the other planes we have. The Americans have threatened that if we attack Iran or if we do anything, like that we're bad boys or something, we will be denied these critical pieces for our aircraft, which means within a week, our Air Force is grounded. So this is a very, very difficult thing for the Israeli military to have to handle. So meanwhile, our planes are flying, as long as we're flying just in Lebanon, and of course in the Israeli areas in Gaza, but our planes may not fly to Iran. If our planes fly to Iran, then it means we will be denied this very important piece of the aircraft, and the planes will be grounded within a week. So I'm just telling you, that there are things that we hear here, assessments in the media, which forebode ill for Israel. And we're counting the days down to the inauguration of President Trump. So we're doing everything we can to avoid having this embargo continuing against Israel. So at this stage, like I said before, at least we are rejoicing that we have reached the Litani River. We've been there 4 times already. You would think after 4 times, finally, the U.S. government would allow Israel to annex the dead zone. Dead zone means no terrorists in that area. But the people, please, whoever is talking should mute themselves. So we are now, like I said before, in a period where we are not attacking Iran, though I think we should. But again, Washington is still pulling the strings according to the Democrat agenda. And it means Israel is not being allowed to win the war or finish the war. And we paid with very heavy casualties. We lost over 800 of our soldiers. And now we're losing people to the rocket barrages. We've lost a few dozen Israeli citizens, including Arab Israelis who are innocent, being killed by these rockets. So we're kind of coasting. We're moving ahead in the south of Lebanon because the agreement that we're being forced to sign means eventually that we have to pull out from all the areas that we conquered in Lebanon and go back to the border. Now, when we do that, it means the Israeli citizens who are forced out of their homes, 70,000 of them, still will not be able to go back to their homes, because if these terrorists come back and are shooting from 100 yards away, what kind of deal did we fight in? So we're praying for Trump. We're praying for him to have a successful inauguration and get this war finished for once. From what I understand, if we sign the agreement, we will still be in place in the south of Lebanon for 60 days more. So we will not be withdrawing for another 60 days. So I'm just saying, I cannot say that this agreement is in cement. This agreement maybe will never happen, in which case the Israeli army keeps moving north. And we've been in Beirut before, so we know the road, we know the way. Anyway, that's the basic bottom line of what's happening today. If you have any questions, of course, you can ask. As you ask, I'll probably remember more things to say. I have to make a personal note. I was supposed to be translating a book from Hebrew to English, a very important book. and I am just not able to translate because my mind is so burned out from watching 8 hours a day of TV, or no, 10 hours a day of TV. It's very difficult for me to start concentrating on translating. I get very exhausted from watching the news all the time. And watching the news means watching all the stations. And so the only station I agree with is 14, but 11, 12, 13, and 15 are left-wing socialist stations. And one of the depressing aspects of our news is that there is still in the air a coup d'etat against Netanyahu being planned. The Supreme Court is against Netanyahu. They're all left-wing holdovers, communists. Israel is a communist country as far as the bureaucracy goes. And even though the majority of the Israelis vote to the Likud, it doesn't mean anything because everything is overturned by the socialists in the Supreme Court and other senior echelons of the Israeli government. The army, the police, foreign ministry. So it's like, I don't want to say it, but if this were the Soviet Union, there would be firing squads. And we Jews do not do that kind of thing. But those who are trying to throw Netanyahu into jail and innocent Israeli soldiers, officers into jail on trumped-up charges and Soviet-style interrogation, this is something we cannot tolerate anymore. So I still don't know where this is all headed. But in my lowly position, I will just do emails with all of you, emails and Zooms. Questions?
Yeah, Avi, this is Janice. What is the process for replacing people on the Supreme Court? Are they serving terms like they are here? And do I have to retire to get somebody new on there? How do you do that?
Well, the situation in Israel is that the Supreme Court judges appoint their replacements. And right-wing people, for example, like myself, can never be a Supreme Court judge. Only socialist communists. In other words, these are people who are not elected. I always think when I'm in the United States, I see, elections for your local judges. And it's wonderful, but you don't have that here. What you have here is the Communist International or the Socialist International, and they appoint each other. They're not elected, and they do whatever they want. And anything that Netanyahu tries to do gets blocked immediately, even though the whole government supports him. He has a majority in the Knesset. But the Knesset, our Congress, is totally worthless because they can be overturned by decisions from the Supreme Court. And now they're starting to talk about people being arrested. It's not happening yet, but there is something in the air that people like myself will be arrested and put away. And one day we're going to wake up and Netanyahu is gone, everyone's gone, and they're going to have a salvation program to save Israel from the crazy right-wing people who are 70% of the population. So I know many people in the United States are concerned about a civil war. We also are concerned with a civil war. And God protect us in Israel and in America from a civil war, because nobody needs a civil war. I'm sorry to give you depressing news, but that's what I'm swallowing and digesting every day as I watch the media. So also, I have to tell you, a few days ago, we had a power outage, and we had power. We had an internet outage, and our TV is through the internet. Our computers are through the internet. We did not have any internet for about 6 hours, and then the TV came back only much later or the next morning. I don't know if it's cyber war or some major glitch, but we know and we appreciate how wonderful it is for us to have internet and to have electricity. And even our ground telephone lines were not working. Nothing was working. So we're waiting to see, where this is all going. I'm sorry, Janice, if I gave you a depressing answer, but we're in a depressing situation.
Well, it's reality. Yeah, we need to know that.
In America, you have militias. People have weapons. Men and women have weapons, have ammunition. You don't have that here in Israel. In Israel, we have weapons. In other words, people like myself have a pea shooter, a pistol. But the long barreled guns, M16s, etc., these are only held by military people. So it'll be interesting to see, will there be a conflict involving the lower ranks in the military rising up against the communists who control everything? And I hate to say it, but Israel is controlled by communists and socialists. And it happens that these people, like Democrats in the United States, are very wealthy. And they spend a lot of money on negative advertising against Netanyahu and the right wing. As I said before, 70% of the population in Israel are either Sephardic or Orthodox Jews, or Likud and right-wing people like myself. The left-wing people who control Israel are not going to give it up. They say, no, the country belongs to us, not to the majority. And what the country needs is to be saved from Netanyahu and saved from the right-wing and religious people. So I'm happy every day that I'm alive and able to do what I'm doing, but we have a very, very difficult power play going on between the right and the left in this country. I hope I answered you.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Sometimes I say to myself, I will really be happy if I am able to have a breather and go to the States for a month or two and then just, say whatever I want to say. And I'm afraid sometimes from these Zooms that I could be arrested. I mean, I'm not saying anything, but I'm sure I'm on the blacklist somewhere.
Avi, would it be possible for maybe the military to go in and actually clean out? I mean, just demolish everything, say for the first quarter mile or so into Lebanon to establish a safe zone or no fire zone?
Well, that was the plan. But now the United States and the French are saying, together with the Lebanese, are saying that Israel has to withdraw all the way back to the border, which means everything that we have been fighting for has been negated. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We are south of the Litani River, which is something we've said all along. It's not the first time. It's the fourth time that Israel is being attacked by terrorists, and Israel has to go in and clean it up. So you were saying clean it up. We cleaned it up. And so we'll have to see now where the negotiations go. It's now 10 minutes to 4 in the afternoon here in Israel. At 4 o'clock, the prime minister is holding a meeting with his cabinet. So we'll see. We'll see where this is all going. I think Rachel is watching the TV downstairs. So if they meet at 4, they'll have a decision by 5 or 6. But there's constantly breaking news here in Israel, so we never know until it happens what's going on. My personal opinion is the fighting will continue and there's no ceasefire. And the United States will impose more sanctions on Israel.
Well, I'll go ahead and contact my senators and my representative here in Texas. Try to maybe put some pressure on them.
Please do. Please do. Very important for all Americans to contact their congressmen and women and to tell them, I think they know already. that Israel has a different system than the American system. The Israeli system is a system which will not allow change, any kind of change. And even since 1977, the governments largely have been right-wing Likud governments. And the demography is such that the right wing and the religious are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the socialists are saying, no, we won't have any of this. So the top generals in the army are all socialists, communists, very rich people. And the lower levels up to colonel are right wing. Many religious officers are dying fighting. The demography is going against the left. The democracy is with the right wing and the religious. I think eventually the right wing wins, but it's a pity that we cannot work together with these people, and constantly attacks on Netanyahu, who, by the way, is more popular now than ever in Israel among the people.
I guess you've heard that Jack Smith has dropped all charges against Trump.
There is discussion in Israel now that all the charges against Netanyahu should be dropped also, but the Supreme Court is continuing like it's the hottest news on the earth. And Netanyahu, we all know Netanyahu is innocent. These are political trials.
Well, I guess as Israel goes, America goes, and as America goes, Israel goes.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you believe in God. I believe in God. I think we all know that God is going to make sure this comes out with a happy ending, and we'll all be okay.
Avi, what all countries are involved in brokering this ceasefire deal? And does France have some involvement? And what's going on with that?
Well, you have to remember that France has always been the patron of Lebanon. France was actually a colonial ruler over Syria and Lebanon. They broke away Lebanon from Syria to create a Christian state in the 1930s. But by the 1940s, it was clear that the Christians were losing their majority status. And so then the struggle became a struggle between the Shiites and the Sunnis, with the Christians just trying to hold off any attacks on the Christian community. And of course, the Druze, who are another people, they are descended from Jethro. The Druze maintain an autonomous separation from the other groups, from the Christians, the Sunnis, and the Shiites. I will say something very interesting, though, before I get back to France. The Druze now are very, very disenchanted with the Hezbollah. They're very disenchanted with the Shiites. There was always this saying that the Druze of Lebanon are loyal to Lebanon, the Druze of Israel are loyal to Israel, the Druze of Syria are loyal to Syria, and the Druze in Jordan are loyal to Jordan. But what we see happening now, literally, is fighting in the streets in the south of Syria between the Druze and the Iranian-backed militias. As you may remember, a few months ago, a rocket fell in a soccer field in Majd al-Shams, and 12 little children were killed playing soccer by a Hezbollah rocket. Israel eliminated the commander of the Hezbollah responsible for that missile. Walid Jumblat, who is the leader of the Druze in Lebanon, and until now has not been a friend to Israel. All of a sudden now he's expressing his disenchantment with Hezbollah. There is no more alliance with Hezbollah. The Druze in Suwaida in the south of Syria are begging Israel to invade the south of Syria, link up with the mountain of the Druze, and extend the umbrella of protection to the Druze in South Syria. If we did that, we would basically be halfway to the Euphrates River. For those of you like myself who believe that one day we will reach the Euphrates River, this is a sign. The Druze are seeking, I think, total alliance with Israel. The Christians of Lebanon are now having to decide which way they're going, because there is a very big faction of Christians that are loyal to Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and until now they were loyal to Hezbollah, because Hezbollah was part of the alliance against the Sunnis. So I don't know yet where this is all headed, but from what it seems to me is that the day will come soon that the Christians will somehow overcome their animosity to Israel, and instead of that, they'll realize that Hezbollah is not their friend, and so the Christians, the Druze, the Sunnis will defeat Hezbollah in a civil war. Although I'm not sure, because all these militias handed over their weapons to the central authority, the Lebanese army, except for Hezbollah. And a lot of the army is controlled by Hezbollah. So today, the Christians, the Sunnis, and the Druze are without weapons. Now, another interesting point is that the Syrian government is run primarily by Shiites. They have Sunnis who are part of if you remember your history, they're talking about the Ba'ath party. I am not sure if this is going to happen or not, but Israel is having secret negotiations with the Syrians now in order to get Iran out of the picture. So what we're trying to do is to emasculate the Hezbollah and eventually to bring the regime of Iran to its knees. So the question is, will this be done today, tomorrow, within 60 days, or after the time that President Trump reassumes office? So, we're watching. These are all things, let me tell you, reverberating through my brain all the time. Every time I watch the news and I hear the different analysts, experts talking about Syria, talking about the Druze, talking about the Christians, it's very, very hard to understand these things. And so I'm following them very, very closely. I hope I didn't confuse all of you.
So what are your thoughts about current France and Macron?
Oh, good. You know what? I didn't answer your question, so this is my chance to answer your question. The French maintain I would say, a quasi-patron relationship with Lebanon. The language of culture of Lebanon is French, not English. It's an area of influence for the French, but the French have not been able really to have any muscle in what's going on. I think there is a combination of interests to the American government and to the French government, which at this stage are both anti-Israel. So supposedly the Lebanese are saviors of Lebanon, but it's all just a masquerade. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Israel is maintaining very good relations with the Christians, very good relations with the Druze. But we've been there so many times before. We don't know who we can trust and who can be with us. And Is it all just the masquerade? Lebanon is a country of masquerade. Maybe, Laurie, you want to sharpen your question. If for a certain answer, it'll help me to give you the answer you need.
Yeah, no, that's great. Are there other countries involved in brokering the ceasefire, or is it just the United States and France?
United States and France, but we must never forget that there are two countries very close, Turkey and Russia. And you have to remember the Russians are right next door. The Russians are in Syria, in the Golan Heights. The Russians have their military standing off against the Israeli military in the Golan Heights. In the north of Syria, northwest, you have an area called Idlib. That's backed by the Turks. And Idlib is a very fanatic Sunni, I would say ISIS type. This is part of the agreement that was reached between the Turks and the Syrians, not to kill all of the Sunnis, but instead to send them to go live in that little enclave. Definitely the Turks, definitely the Russians. So we're watching that very carefully. It's not easy living in this neighborhood, let me tell you. The Mideast is not the Midwest. That's supposed to be funny. Any more questions?
Has there been any talk recently at all about the hostages?
No. I mean, there's a lot of talk, but what can we do? The hostages are being held in areas which I think we know where the areas are, but we would be threatening the lives of the hostages if we went in to get them by force, including the lives of the soldiers who would be probably getting blown up by booby traps. And so I think that Netanyahu prefers, we already lost soldiers trying to find the hostages. So now what they're saying is there has to be some kind of a negotiated settlement. But the problem is that the Hamas doesn't want that settlement. The Hamas is happy getting relief, for humanitarian relief, which it hijacks, then selling it to the public for very high prices, when this relief, humanitarian relief, should be free. So meanwhile, the United Nations says that we are starving the Gaza Arabs, which is complete nonsense. If anyone is starving, they're being starved by the Hamas. But nobody's being starved. Very simply, the Hamas charges a very high fee. A bottle of drinking water, a small bottle, sells for $20. Israeli soldiers in Gaza give the bottles out for free. But that's not enough to get the Gaza population to betray Hamas and come over to the Israeli side. So, we're still looking for the breaking point when the Gaza Arabs will decide to align themselves with Israel and reject the Hamas. I personally think that eventually the Hamas will be defeated. But see here, the socialists, the communists, are constantly attacking Netanyahu and saying that there's no way that we can defeat the Hamas. So they're defeatists, they're pacifists, and they are stabbing the Israeli soldiers in the back by going against government policy.
Hi, Avi.
Hi, Angela, I'm from New Jersey.
Hello, hello.
I'm just joking. I know you're not from New Jersey. If you were from New Jersey, you'd be saying New Jersey.
New Jersey, yes, that's
you're
it.
from Jersey, England. So, okay.
Avi, I'm just wondering, what does Israel think about Turkey as a NATO country now receiving Hamas from Qatar into the country, giving them a safe haven there?
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
I've spoken about this many times. Of course, there's always new news. Turkey is a country that we have to, I would not say that we have to fear, but Turkey potentially is a biblical enemy attacking from the north. And we have to be very, very careful with them. I'll share something which I've shared before, but I'm going to go back and repeat it and then come back to where we are now. The island of Cyprus used to be a Venetian colony. After the Crusades, it was taken over by the Venetian Catholics. And then there was a major war between Turkey, the Turkish Navy, and the Venetian, Genoan, and Spanish navies in 1571. And the Christians, the Catholics, basically sank the whole Turkish fleet at the Battle of Lepanto. See, I should be writing my book now on this. And I have all the information. It's just my brains are mush with this war. The Turks were so taken by surprise at losing their entire fleet that the Turks, in the peace negotiations, said to the Catholics, you have to rebuild our entire fleet. And the Catholics rebuilt the Turkish Navy, because whoever controls the sea controls the continent. Don't forget at this time that the Turkish army was at the gates of Vienna. Turkish don't forget their history. Turkish have a very remarkable history. The Turks ruled from Spain all the way to China. One of the payments of the Catholics was to hand over Cyprus to the Turks. In other words, I don't know if there were any Turks living in Cyprus at the time. It was either Catholic or Greek Orthodox. But the Turkish Empire is very powerful. And then in 1878, there was another war, and the British took Cyprus and made it a British colony. And the idea was, like with Hong Kong, the British would have to return Hong Kong to the Chinese, and it would have to return Cyprus to the Turks. But meanwhile, the Christian population was about 80% in Cyprus, and under no circumstances did the Cypriots want to go back to Turkish rule, except for the 100,000 Turks that were in the north of the island. So the Turks are very fuming, because they're saying, listen, we had a 99-year lease, and the 99 years are over. Remember what happened with China? 99-year lease. And then they said Hong Kong is China. They took it back. So the Turks theoretically are ready to retake Cyprus. The two things that are three things very concerning to Israel. Number one, now we have found gas in the Eastern Mediterranean. There is gas under the ground in the Cypriot border area, the Israeli border area. And so happy-go-lucky, Cyprus and Israel are marching together to develop the gas fields there. So the Turks are saying, wait a second, Cyprus belongs to Turkey, so you should be negotiating with Turkey. And the Turks want, a cut in all the profits. And the Turks are threatening to conquer Cyprus. So now I have to go back to another thing. My very dear Greek friend was in Kyrenia or Kyrenia on the north side of the island. And one morning it was, I remember the date exactly because I was in the army at the time, July 14th, 1974. He woke up in the morning to get a glass of water, and he saw the whole Turkish fleet right off the coast of northern Cyprus. And in their pajamas, they just dropped everything, got in their car and drove right back to Nicosia capital of Cyprus, and they could see the parachutes of the Turkish paratroopers coming behind them. And the Turks killed a lot of the Greeks, and they took the northern part of the island. The Turks today hold 40% of Cyprus. And my Greek friends in Cyprus say to me, Turks can retake the rest of the island in 24 hours. Now, I don't know exactly what the situation is with the Israeli military in Cyprus today, but I do know that there is very, very increased coordination and cooperation between the Greek National Guard and the Israeli military. And the Israelis are training in Cyprus because the topography of Cyprus is very, very much like Lebanon. So one of my fears, they don't even need to land a landing force. The Turks are already there. The Turks could cross over the border between northern Cyprus and southern Cyprus. They could take it in one day. The reason I was thinking of writing my book about the Second Battle of Lepanto is that the Israelis are in the capability of sinking the entire Turkish fleet. So this would be a repeat of the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. So it's interesting, when you know the history, you see how 500 years later, 600 years later, everything is coming back as it was. The Turks want to retake Cyprus in order to get the gas or to negotiate an agreement with Israel. Cyprus will be gone. Cyprus will no longer exist. It'll be part of Turkey. Now, one of the things that, I'm changing completely the subject. One of the things we saw when Naftali Bennett was the prime minister for 1 year was he handed over land to Lebanon because supposedly their gas field was a continuation of our gas field. And so the French gas company made an agreement with Lebanon, and Israel gave land and sea territory to the Hezbollah for peace. But the Hezbollah were laughing their heads off, and we still went to war with Hezbollah in spite of trying to do everything. It's like with Hamas. We're trying to help Hamas to be a normal government, help Hezbollah to be a normal government, but nothing works because they're just terrorists. But what I'm saying is the Turks have a very, very strong representation, a very strong influence on what happens in Cyprus. And Cyprus is right next door to Lebanon. Cyprus is not only, the Turks are not only just offshore on the island of Cyprus. The Turks are in Idlib in northwest Syria, which is right on the border also with Lebanon. So the first thing that was bothering me, as I said before, was this question of the gas. And so Turkey theoretically could ruin our gas production. The idea of the Israeli-Greek alliance is that there will be a pipeline going from Israel to Cyprus. The gas from both Israel and Cyprus then will go through another pipeline to Greece, and then from Greece to to Italy. And as you know, there's a problem today with the Russians supplying gas to Europe. So Israel and the Greeks would work together to get that gas over to Italy. Another thing also, Israel sends gas. Now this is crazy, but you know, we had a deal with the Egyptians. The Egyptians had gas. We were going to get the gas from them, but the gas pipeline got blown up every time. So now that Israel has its own gas, Israel now is sending the gas to Egypt. Egypt could not keep its part of the agreement, so we're sending them the gas, and then the gas gets liquefied. And once it's liquefied, it is shipped to Europe. How do we get the gas to Egypt? We send it to Jordan. Jordan sends it across to Sinai, and then from there to Egypt. The whole idea always is peace, peace, peace. You know, we do business with all these different countries, and they're all stabbing us in the back. So the second thing we're very afraid of is, like I said before, the gas. That was the first thing. Second thing, did you ever hear of El Al Airlines? Well, El Al Airlines at this stage is relatively free to fly over Turkish territory, over Jordan, over Saudi Arabia, all the way to the Emirates, and all the way to the Far East, over Egypt. Our fear is, in the case of a major war, all of those airspaces will be shut down by the Arabs and by the Turks, strangling Israel. El Al will not be able to fly from Tel Aviv because the Egyptians will be to the south and the Turks will be to the north. And I don't know, those of you who have come to Israel, you look on the map and you see they're flying over Turkey or flying near Turkey. So the Israeli El Al will be almost completely cut off from all the air routes because of these countries that will all of a sudden declare war on us. I think that's the Armageddon War. That's not what we have now. That's the second thing. So the first thing I was saying was the history of Cyprus, and they want to take it back. And strategically, it means the Turks are in a position to cut us off. Secondly, the gas and the oil. That's very important for Turkey. Another thing I didn't mention, of course, the third thing, of course, is that the Turks are in a position to either annihilate all the 500,000 Christians on the island of Cyprus, or deport them, expel them, or maybe a combination of both. Obviously, none of these scenarios are good for Israel. Turkey could theoretically play a major role in a major war against Israel. I think this is the Armageddon country. Again, I have to stress, Europe, I'm giving you ballpark figures now. Europe is a continent which has 300 million, I won't say Christians, 300 million non-Muslims, because Christianity in Europe is virtually dead. The churches are shutting down and the Muslims are buying them out. So you have 300 million Christians, 50 million Turks and Arabs from North Africa. So you say, well, they're not the majority. Now what happens here is Turkey is trying to join NATO, trying to join the European Union. Turkey is a country of close to 100 million people. So 100 million Turks and 50 million Muslims living in Europe already, it's 150 million, still not a majority. But the trick here is that the Soviet Union was 350 million people, but out of the 350 million people, 200 million broke away into the 6 Islamic republics. So these are Turkic peoples. These people all have Turkish passports if they want. They can come to Turkey and get Turkish passports. Once they have Turkish passports and Turkey is part of NATO or the European Union, then all of a sudden you have a tsunami of 200 million Turkic Muslims in addition to 100 million Turkish Muslims from Turkey. That's 300 million, plus 50 million Muslims were already in Europe. That's 350 million versus 300 million non-Muslims, meaning the Muslims become automatically the majority in Europe. This is a threat to Israel also. We are not in a good situation. I mean, again, you have to believe in God and to believe that God is going to help us in our time of need. Israel's just a little island in the middle of an Islamic sea. And you have people like, I don't want to again mention names, but Republicans or Democrats. These people in America are bought out by Qatar. All the universities are bought out by Islamic money. This has been going on for generations now. There's an unholy matrimony between the Muslims who have bought out the universities in America and the communists who fled from Russia after the Civil War. They were sent they were from the Frankfurt and the School of Thought of Frankfurt and Leipzig. And these professors radiated down 60 years to this day, or 80 years to this day. Universities are controlled by an unholy matrimony of communism and Islam. The universities are not Christian. America is going away from Christianity, except for the elections we just saw. The American people, I think, woke up in these elections, and the Christians helped to save America from the Muslims and the communists. But Turkey is right in the middle of all of this. The terrorist, the Uzbeki terrorist who killed the rabbi in Qatar, not in Qatar, in the Emirates, I don't not yet know what happened to the 3 murderers. They arrested 3. I don't know if it's those specific 3. But you have to remember, they're from Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan was part of the Soviet Union. Today it's a Muslim country. It might be that the government is not the fanatic Muslims that just flew right over my head. What happens is these terrorists then go to Turkey. Turkey has an open door to the Muslim terrorists from the Islamic republics that were Turkic. So all of this is, we are watching closely. We're very concerned. And Jewish people, Israelis, are targets anywhere they go because these Muslims are everywhere. And, I've been going to the States now for over 35 years trying to explain the threat of Islam to America. And people think I'm from the moon. But the moon is here, and the moon is now. And all I can say is praise God that Trump won the election. And we have to pray for Trump that he is not overthrown in some backstabbing operation, which will lead to a civil war. The same in Israel. We have to pray that Netanyahu is not overthrown by these communists, who, by the way, are pro-Muslim also. So how's that for good news? Anyway, so the Turks we say in Hebrew, we're stepping on eggshells not to offend the Turks because we don't want a war with them. Turks are not bad people. A lot of the Turks, 50% of the Turks oppose Erdogan. But I think at some stage it is feasible that we will face a war which will include Turkey and will include the Islamic republics that broke away from Russia. So right there, we're talking about 300 million people. This is the great threat to Israel. I remember Chuck Missler used to say that Russia was the Armageddon. At that time, Russia was mostly Islamic. But then when the Russian Federation broke up and they freed themselves from 200 million Turks, Russia today is 100 million Russian Orthodox people. So I disagreed then with Chuck Missler. Russia is not the Armageddon. Russia might be part of the Armageddon if Russia gets closer to the Turks or the Muslims. It is a possibility, but the Russians themselves, as Russian Orthodox, have a 1,000-year history of fighting with the Turks, fighting with the Muslims. So this is also very complicated. It's not an easy thing to, with the brush of your hand, to say this is how it is and this is how it's not. Things could happen in Russia, which would bring them closer to the Turks. And it could be that one day either Putin gets eliminated or a new leadership in Russia would become nationalist Christian and anti-Muslim. But Putin just built the Muslims a tremendous mosque in Moscow. I think there are 2 million Muslims in Moscow. But the Russian population is shrinking, and they have a very low birth rate, and a lot of the people ran away from Russia, fled from Russia, because of all this killing going on in the Ukraine. So again, it's very hard for me to put my finger on one thing and say, this is what it is. No, there are many fingers and many calculations that have to be made. And as we say in the Israeli army in the Middle East, you have to learn to expect the unexpected. Anyway, sorry for this long-winded explanation. Any other questions?
Do you have any insight into the rabbi who was killed in the UAE, if that was sort of a one-off thing or part of a larger plot?
I think it was part of a larger plot because I think that Iran was behind it. Iran is denying any involvement in this, but Iran said that we're going to kill the Jews wherever we can find them. I don't know. I don't think it was in your news in America, but a Jew was killed in Tennessee. Did you get that news?
Yeah, in Memphis. Yep.
Yes. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the United States. The story of the Israeli being killed in Memphis was that he was what's the word? The guy who fixes locks or opens up locks.
He was a locksmith.
Locksmith. He got a call. Israeli. He got a call. Somebody's mother was trapped inside of a car. Now that sounds crazy. So he went there. They killed him, and they stole his passport, and they stole everything he had. This is highly suspicious. I also know a young lady. She's 70, like me, 75. She was from Memphis, and she said to me there was a story about a very prominent Jew in Memphis who was killed by a black man who I think was a black Muslim. So, Jews are being killed. Nobody talks about it. And I cannot talk about it because I can be arrested for defamation. I have to tell you, this is, I think, a very interesting testimony. Also a little long-winded, but I think you guys love this stuff, so I'll tell you again. I was told about a interfaith conference in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in November of 1974. No, 1994, excuse me. And thank you. I read what you wrote to me, Neil. So I had just started speaking in Christian churches, and there was a very sweet Christian family that took me in so that I could be, going to this conference. Very important. I was told to go to the conference by a Catholic nun by the name of, she was from Seton Hall University. I'm having a blackout now. It will come back to me in a moment. Rose Thering. Rose Thering was a nun, and I had lunch with her a number of times in New York City. And very, very friendly, very loving of the Jews. She did a doctoral thesis on how the Jews did not kill Jesus Christ. He was loved by the Jewish people. Because he was loved by the Jewish people, he was killed because he was seen by the rabbis and the Romans as a threat. But the Jewish people didn't kill Christ. Okay. Anyway, that's my Christian theology for today. So she told me, you have to come to this conference in Tulsa. So I went. She was there. There were Protestants, Catholics, Jews, and some Muslims spoke there also. Very nice interfaith. And I spoke to the conservative rabbi, to the reform rabbi. They knew who I was, and nobody invited me for the Sabbath. Now, when a foreigner comes into the United States, especially from Israel, he should be invited for the Shabbat, for the Sabbath. And I was not invited. I even told him I went to seminary, conservative seminary for 3 years in Jerusalem. Didn't invite me. So Friday, my Christian host said to me, aren't you going to the rabbi for Shabbat? I said, nobody invited me. I said, which rabbis? I told him. I said, no. There's an Orthodox rabbi Okay, the Reform and Conservative would not invite me. So I told the Orthodox rabbi, it was Chabad. Chabad. And he was very nervous. And he said to me, it's 1 hour before Shabbat. Are you a Jew? I said, yes. So come over right now. I said, but I work with the Christians. So I don't care who you work with. It's 1 hour before Shabbat. Get here before it gets dark. Goodbye. Hung up the phone. So I go running over to the Chabad rabbi. It was the nicest Sabbath I ever had. There is no group like Chabad, let me tell you. I'm not ultra-Orthodox, but Chabad are the best. Anyway, I got many invitations to come back a few months later. It was Passover, 1995. And I stayed at the Chabad house in Tulsa. And the bomb goes off in Oklahoma City. And my Christian friends were telling me all this information about how 3 Muslims bought the ammonium nitrate for the bomb in McPherson, Kansas, all this information, and that the FBI went to McPherson and told the owner of the fertilizer company not to talk about it for reasons of national security. In other words, they're covering up the whole thing. The bomb in Oklahoma City was a Muslim bomb. Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols were part of the Muslim group, even though they may or may not have been Muslim. There's a whole story behind that also, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. And so I was in Tulsa. It was the intermediate days of Passover. And I get a call from my Christian friend. They want you on CBS News in Tulsa. So I said, okay. So they picked me up. They took me. And I explained to them why this was a Muslim bomb. That evening, the phone rings at the rabbi's house, Rabbi Way. And it was the conservative rabbi, the one who wouldn't invite me for Shabbat to the synagogue. And he said to Rabbi Weg, he said, I want Lipkin out of your house, and I want him out of Tulsa for besmirching the good name of the Muslims. And so the Rabbi Weg said, firstly, I have to tell you, I think Avi's right. I think it was a Muslim bomb. Secondly, you're not going to tell me who's going to be in my house or not. Avi's going to be in my house. He's going to stay as long as he wants. So that is the story from Oklahoma City, from Tulsa and Oklahoma City. Even my own rabbis, Reform, Conservative, all the rabbis are my rabbis, but people like them are trying to squelch, and they've succeeded. They've succeeded in squelching me in the synagogues. I cannot talk in Jewish synagogues in America about the Muslim threat. And Chabad listened to me and protected me. So that is something which happened in 1995. How many years have gone by? 30. 30 years. It's virtually impossible for me to go to a synagogue and speak. Many synagogues have me, and they say, just don't talk. Don't talk about Islam. Everybody's shivering from Islam. It's not only that. There are many liberals who go to the Chabad synagogue and donate money. Chabad is not political. And so they say, if you talk about Islam, we will lose our financing. So even in Chabad, everyone's afraid of Islam. The liberals are miseducated or uneducated. And the Christians listen to me. Why do the Christians listen to me and the Jews don't? And so now my ultimate message is we are now before a Holocaust. And the only people who don't understand that the Jews are going to get Holocausted are the Jews. And let me tell you something, God forbid, if anything happens to Trump, there's going to be so much Jewish blood in the streets. Because those people who back Trump, and I back Trump, but there are going to be those who say the Jews are all communists. And they're liberals, and they don't know anything. So, I don't know. I don't even know if I can now post this, or talk. If my son sees this, he won't post it. Because I'm talking against the liberals. And the liberals control this and control that. So it's already happened that my son is my best friend and my censor. He says, Abba, this cannot be put on YouTube's because you will lose your account. But you asked a question, and I'm telling you, the Turks are in America, and the Muslims from the Arabs are in America. Everybody's in America, and they're, you know, even the Bush family, which are Republicans, they're solidly behind the Muslims. I don't know. I mean, I could attack the Democrats, but there are also a lot of people are just completely bought out by Islamic money. And so my wife says to me, don't go to America anymore. Just stay here. The problem is here in Israel, we can have a coup d'etat against Netanyahu, and then the left-wing people here will get me. What, you tell me, what should I do other than enjoy life? But I love, and for me, enjoying life is going to the States and lecturing. I live for that. So probably I'll go to the States. I might get arrested and I might get killed. And I don't even care. I'm 76. I've done my job. You know who said that? Remember Aristotle and Socrates. Socrates was 71 when they gave him the hemlock to drink and commit suicide rather than speak against the leadership. Isn't that wonderful? I think this is one of the happiest messages I've ever had. Any other questions?
The building that was blown up, well, that was a federal building, right?
Correct. The Murrah Federal Building.
Wasn't there something about a certain, I won't mention the name, a certain president might have been involved in that?
The certain president you don't want to mention absolutely was.
Yeah.
You know, I have to tell you something. I also don't want to mention names, but people I work with in Oklahoma City, how many years is it? 30 years? And every time I go there, I say, don't you think it's time to blow the lid off this can of worms? And they said to me, Avi, we know the people in the government. And they said to us, we know that you know what really happened. If you talk about it, we have to kill you. It's kind of a miracle I'm still alive, because this thing about Oklahoma City was one of the best kept secrets in American history.
Didn't you try to speak to a certain president about it, but you didn't get to speak to him?
I haven't spoken to any American presidents. So.
Well, no, you wanted to speak to him. And
I will speak to anyone who will listen, but the point is, maybe God has the doors closed for a reason.
Yeah.
By the way, my grandson's getting married on Monday, this coming Monday. So I want to stay alive at least for the next 5 days. And hopefully my wife won't kill me either. She could do that too, you know. So 55 years, she hasn't killed me yet. So I'm always treading on thin ice. But I love you guys. I love chatting with you. And for whatever it's worth, I share my information. All of my information is in my 7 books, which are all available on my website. I never do advertising, but biblicalalliance.com, my books. My problem is that very often PayPal says they won't work with me anymore. Amazon won't work with me anymore. So if I want to tell you my books, I'll have to come personally to Texas or Oklahoma or Florida or Long Island and carry a whole ton of books with me in the car. And I got to write new books, but you see, I'm torn. I have so much to do. So.
Shall we stop the recording?
Okay, I think we are good. And until we meet next week, God willing, it'll be the day.